In your kit today, you received a needle and some thread. The thread is called Fireline. I wound off enough to complete your project onto a paper spool. This is what it looks like when you buy it from the vendor. It comes in various sizes. It also comes in two colors, crystal and smoke. Crystal is a white color, smoke is a darker color. Some of your kits will have the crystal, some will have smoke. In the project that we're doing today, it's really immaterial whether you use crystal or smoke. The reason for using one versus the other generally has to do with the project you're doing. If you're using darker beads, you might want to use the smoke so that that the thread doesn't show so much. If you're using light beads in your project, you might want to use crystal. In the case of what we're doing, the American flag, you have both light and dark beads, so it really isn't going to matter. Fireline is a product that basically consists of a very, very fine braided metal threads encased in a plastic outer coating. It's very tough, very durable. We're using a lightweight Fireline. It does come in a heavier weight also. For what we're making, there really is no reason to use the heavier weight, and in fact, the lighter weight will give our bracelets a nice drape. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of the Fireline off. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off the spool rather than off the paper spools that you have in your kit, but in fact, it is exactly the same product. Now please, you should be unspooling enough to work with. The general rule of thumb is to hold one end of your thread in the tip of your fingers and measure your length by extending your arm. I'm extending my left arm to its full length. I'm holding the thread in my right arm, coming to my right shoulder, and where the two fingers that are clasping the thread are, that's where I'm going to cut it. Now the next thing that you should know is that this is a very, very tough thread to cut and get a clean cut on it. It's very important that you do get a clean cut. So I generally will wrap the thread that I'm going to cut around my fingers. You might want to wrap it around the other fingers because you don't have as strong. You could wrap it around your other finger to give yourself a place to cut. You can lay, as I do, your other hand down on top of your spool. And what I do is I lay it on the spool, and then I take my scissors, pull very taut, and then cut your thread, and you see it snaps. That's going to give you a very clean edge on your thread. Now the thing you should know is that your beading needle is a little different than a normal needle. Normal needles are actually somewhat of a wedge shape. The top is thicker than the bottom. That gives you room for a big enough eye that it's easy to thread. A beading needle is very narrow from the bottom to the top, so that the eye is very narrow and it's more difficult to thread. It's also somewhat flattened, but your thread is kind of rounded. So the first thing that we need to do is flatten the thread. For that, I'm going to use what's called a flat nose plier, and I'm going to grab it about a ½ inch back. And I'm simply going to pull it, and now the end of my thread is flattened. Now I'll tell you a secret. I usually do this with my teeth. Now if you ask your dentist, they're not going to approve of that. I've heard that this can leave grooves in your teeth if you do it over a protracted period of time. I've been beading since about 2006. I've told my dentist I've done this, I do this. I've not shown any signs of grooves, but in fact it can happen. Excuse me, other beaders have reported it. Now, the next step is to thread your needle. You want to take your flattened end and put it through. Now, I'm making it look difficult, and in fact, it isn't always easy. I'm currently wearing one pair of reading glasses as I'm trying to do this. But the hole is small. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop. I have a second pair of reading glasses sitting on my desk. I'm going to put them on top of my first, and this is going to act like a magnifying glass. I'm going to look silly, but I'll be able to see better what I'm doing. And in fact, I just thread my needle on a single pass. If you are able to see well enough to thread your needle without the aid of glasses, I envy you. If you aren't, and you have a pair of readers and that's enough for you, please go ahead and do so. If you need to use 2 pairs, go ahead and do it. If you need 2 pairs, you don't have them, and you have a neighbor that might lend them to you, that's great. If you have nobody you can borrow a pair from, I'm bringing some extra pair along. Come up to where I'm working at the table in the front, and I'll be happy to lend you a pair to thread your needle, or I will help you thread the needle myself.